Today, I have a very special guest. You've seen him across ECW, WWE, TNA. You've seen him in Deep South Wrestling. He's the Don. You've seen him all across the world, Mr. Big Vito. Vito, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. I hope everybody out there is doing great. Man, you have a great background, a great setup. Thank you for having me on your show. And right now, the Don of Pro Wrestling, Big Vito from Luciano Enterprises, is representing JCW. How are you doing tonight?
I could be better, but in due time, it will pass, sir. This
I
weather,
hear
you
you.
never know.
So I hear you got a great podcast. I heard you got a lot of fans. My wife has been telling me about you. So I know you got a whole bunch of questions. I know you snowstormed in, aren't you?
Yes, sir. And I guess I don't have to go to work, and I get to talk to you tonight. So I'm grateful for that.
So you need me to send one of my boys up there with a snowplow or truck, some salt, and plow you out? Would you like that?
I would love that, sir. I'd greatly appreciate that.
All right, I'll send you a bill in the morning.
So going back all those years, what was it that professional wrestling, what drew you into that sport?
Uh, well, this goes back a long ways, because I was a basketball player. I was a hooper. I was a baller. And I thought I was going pro. And I actually played basketball in Madison Square Garden. And my parents were there, probably the greatest night, as an amateur and as being a pro athlete, but as an amateur athlete, having your parents at Madison Square Garden watching you play
Hmm.
basketball, probably one of the greatest things I've done. And, I was going to I had scholarship offers, but I couldn't take them because my grade point average wasn't that good. And then I wound up going to community college and wasn't what I wanted. And then I went to, had a tryout with the Olympic baseball team and I didn't make it and I got scouted. And then I was going to play semi-pro football in Staten Island and then that didn't work out. And I was an athlete. I just was, I guess I was just searching. And then one day I'm watching wrestling and I seen it on TV. I said I could do better than these guys. I went to Johnny Rodz' school. And the rest is history, man. It's just I was destined to be an athlete at something,
Hmm.
but pro wrestling just kind of it just fell into my lap. I had an opportunity to be a pro boxer while I was at Gleason's gym. They offered me a job. They offered me they told me the whole deal. They said we need a tough white guy, and you got the perfect look, the perfect demeanor. We know you could do this. And I said I'm already starting. I'm already in with pro wrestling. I think if I did boxing and wrestling, I wouldn't look as pretty as I do today. So
Now, was there anything when you first got into wrestling that maybe was harder for you or that came easy for you than you thought it would be?
a lot of the guys that were in the school, like you're talking about 91, and guys, like back then training was training, it was legit. A lot of mat wrestling. You had to know how to take care of yourself. A lot of big guys. I still had basketball body, so I was on
Hmm.
the smaller side. But as I progressed and the guys took the time to teach me, little by little, I got the game, and I used to go to train 4 days a week. I did shows. I made the WWF in my first year, so I just it just it just kind of like meshed. And I was like I said, I love to practice, so I was always in the gym. I started
Hmm.
working out, and I started just training. And then in my first 2 years, I did what everybody strives to do in their whole career. I did a WCW TV taping. I did WWF TV tapings. I made it to Japan, got a Ribera's jacket, and I made it to Puerto Rico. So that's I was pretty big back then. If you could
That's
do
quite
that,
an accomplishment.
yeah. So I mean, but hard work pays off.
Hmm.
I know I didn't even accomplish monumental things, but when you're trying to strive to make it in the wrestling business, you these are goals that they set for you. Going to the territories, going to Memphis, going to All Japan, going to going through the steps to polish your game. And this wasn't just doing it in a wrestling school. This was actually earning a living while being a pro wrestler in territories where you had to learn the game. And I got a lot of great education in Puerto Rico and Santo Domingo and in Memphis. A lot of guys took the time to teach me. It was a great experience. Wrestling 101 still works today.
Absolutely. And it seems like it came quickly for you doing all that in such a short amount of time. Was that overwhelming for you back then, or was it something you were ready?
I don't think you're ever ready. It's just like, but if you train properly and like when you go to the WWF, my first match was at the Rockers, right?
Hmm.
In front of 15, 17,000 people. Is anybody ready for that? You just go and you do your thing and, you just do things. You
Hmm.
just handle your business. And then, in the WWF, I wrestled Bret Hart 4 times. I wrestled Tatanka 4 times. And, The Undertaker, uh, Virgil, High Energy, British Bulldog, Legion of Doom, Typhoon. On the Indies, I wrestled, you know, Honky Tonk Man, Jimmy Snuka, Demolition, Jim Powers, S.T. Jones, Cousin Luke, Johnny Rods, a whole bunch of pros who took the time to teach me. So as I was going through the ranks, wasn't your average everyday guy because I was already wrestling the pros in the business. So I really never wrestled guys my own caliber. I was always wrestling these greats. I mean, I wrestled Fujinami at Johnny Rod's school. I wrestled Mizawa in Japan. You talk about, I tagged with Tenru. You know what I mean? I did some great things. And that was before that was just in the first 8 years of my career.
That's yeah,
That's
you're
pretty extensive.
yes, sir. When do you feel like that you really had the momentum behind you and you were starting to get your name out there and getting noticed?
I think that, Skull Von Crush gave me a momentum because there were a lot of Skull fans
Mhm.
and there were a lot of people who covered me and a lot of people said, how come you're not signed with Vince? You're working there all the time. Why aren't you signed? It was just, Sergeant Slaughter made a good point for me years later. He says, Vito, your body was there, but you weren't ready maturity wise. And I could understand that in a big way because I could wrestle with anybody. I could know the game, but I just wasn't ready maturity wise. And I think that played a big part in why I took the long road to get where I am today.
How did ECW come to be, and what was it like during that era of ECW and professional wrestling, wrestling with all those crazy, hectic fans?
ECW was a special place. They had a lot of great athletes there. They had a lot of great characters, a lot of guys who came up through the system. And they found a place in ECW. Paul Heyman gave them a chance to, elevate their game, learn the game, be part of something very special. ECW was a cult following. You had the ECW arena. Almost every place we went, we sold out. The pay-per-views were off the charts. You had a little bit of everything, and it's a one of a kind place. That Paulie was um, a great manager, a good leader. He was a good motivator, and a lot of people have some negative things to say, but my experience with the whole thing, it was a positive experience because it gave me a chance to come back. I had just come back from All Japan. I still didn't have a job in wrestling. I just was wrestling the best of the best in Japan,
Mhm.
and come back and I don't have a job. So that's when I went there and I seen Taz. And they introduced me to Paul, and the rest is history.
Is there any particular moments in ECW that stand out for you personally, and where you felt like you were starting to evolve who you were and grow as a performer?
Um, I was wrestling all the top guys in ECW, all the singles competitors, and I would put on great matches with all of them. I guess the most defining moment was me and RVD at the ECW arena,
Hmm.
where people were saying, screaming SBK RVD. I don't think there would have been a sad eye in the house if I would have won the title that day. But, probably the defining moment when I won a job was when I was Paul had Sid come in And Paul had asked three wrestlers if they wanted to wrestle Sid, and they said no. They came to me and said, Vito, I need you to work tonight. I said, what do you need? He said, I need you to wrestle Sid. I said, okay. He says, you know what I want? I said, yeah, I know what I want. I know what you want. And I got stretched out, and nobody knew why I was stretched out. They all thought he killed me. And then I got up and I said, isn't that what you wanted? And they said, you're okay. I said, yeah. He says, Vito, you want a job here for life. He says, you just worked the whole locker room, man. It was like, that's what the man wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But if it wasn't for the experience I had wrestling in the territories and doing the WWF TVs
Mm-hmm.
and doing all the things I did, I would not have known how to respond to that and make Sid larger than life. And then they came up to me and said, Vito, if you would have fought back, it would have been a hell of a fight. I says, we don't know. You Sid would have been in trouble a little bit. I says, yeah, probably. I'm not the toughest guy in the world, but I can handle my business when it comes in the ring. So
As your popularity was growing in ECW, were you getting other offers, or were people putting feelers out to come work with them, or?
there was an offer that came through the pipeline from my good friend who is not with us anymore, Howard Finkel, was with me through my whole ride. And Howard Finkel called me and he said, Vito, WWE has a spot for you. I says, well, I said, I'm at ECW. He says, we know that. We like what you're doing. We'd like you to come in. I says, so I called, made a few phone calls to some of the boys. I spoke with Taz, I spoke with Bubba, I spoke with, Paul and, a few other guys. And, they said, Vito, all these years they've been wanting you. They didn't want to sign you. I said, you come with us, you make a name for yourself, and now they want you. So I actually turned them down in 98. Hard thing to do, but I had
Mm-hmm.
to do it. And I told them I can't. I said, and I told them exactly that. I said, hey, um, all these years you didn't want to offer me anything. I said, now I'm making a name for myself, and now you guys want me. I said, I couldn't do that. And if I would
Mm-hmm.
have took the offer and they would have said, we don't think we want you right now, and then I tried to go back to ECW, that wouldn't have worked. It would have been like, that wasn't the right way to do business. And what I
Mm-hmm.
did was the best business, and not a lot of people know that. And not a lot of people would turn down the WWE, but I did. You know what I mean? So it was a good thing because I wound up going to WCW instead.
Yeah.
And no, I was going to say, I know, like, how did that come? The reason I went to WCW was because I got a call from Vince Russo and JJ Dillon. They'd like to hire me. We spoke about numbers. I went directly to Paul and I said, Paul, I said, I don't want to leave ECW. I said, but this is what they're offering me. Vito, I cannot pay you this. This is what you work your career for. You need to take this offer. He was honest with me. He was cool with me. They didn't owe me any money, so it's like he made a good decision for me in my career. And I appreciate that because I got to do some great things in WCW.
Did they know who they wanted you to be? Did they just want you to be Vito, or was there any discussions on the reasoning for bringing you in on what they wanted from you back then?
They had Johnny the Bull in the power plant, and they said, we want you to be Big Vito. We want you to form a tag team. Like, the persona I was, or the person I was on the streets of Staten Island and Brooklyn and five boroughs. So it
Mhm.
was kind of natural. And, I had Tony Mamaluke and I had Johnny the Bull, and I took care of them and guided them. And we did some great things together, had great vignettes.
Mhm.
Probably still some of the greatest vignettes you'll ever watch in WCW history. And then, it's a shame that Johnny and I never got out of the gate together to go to the WWE, because I think we would have been tag team champions hands down. And if I would have got a chance to be in the FBI with Chuck Palumbo, Johnny
Mhm.
Stambo, and Nunzio, that would have been a great foursome to be reckoned with.
I agree. And in WCW, you kind of went in a hectic time for that company. How was it just trying to stay level-headed during all of that and pursue your dream?
Um, how do you know how to handle that? You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
you're over there with the biggest stars in the world. and you know, you're trying to make it, and you're getting TV time, and you're making the most of it, and you're doing your character. But you know, the backstage politics were above my head and pay grade. You know, but not to say pay grade, but it was above me because I wasn't a super duper star, but I was on my way to being there.
Mhm.
And it was like a lot of changing of the writers and a lot of changing of the heads and who's in charge, who's not in charge, who's in charge, who's this guy's guy, who's this guy's guy. So it was kind of a mix. I still accomplished great things. I'm one of the
Mhm.
more memorable wrestlers to wrestle at that time for them.
Mhm.
And, you know, I mean, they ranked me as probably one of the best hardcore champions there. They ranked me as one of the best tag teams there. I mean, Harlem Heat was great. Steiner Brothers were great. Legion of Doom was great. There are other tag teams that I'm not mentioning that were also, you know, great tag teams in WCW history. I mean, the Four Horsemen, you know, when you mention them, their tag team, no matter what two they put together, they were
Mhm.
always great. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of great teams at that time. But when me and Johnny the Bull were tag team champions, we're being compared to DX. You know what I mean? And we're, you
Mhm.
know, being compared. And then when I went on a singles run, you know, I have magazines where you have Big Vito here and you have The Rock here, Big Vito here, and you have Triple H, and you're like the comparisons, you know, from the Monday Night Wars were awesome, and people don't realize like how I was on the cusp of being a major superstar in the business, but
Mhm.
because they closed and because of the changing of the guard, and all that, it just didn't happen at that time.
What stands out the most for you during your run in WCW?
Uh, I have to say that I was with a lot of great professionals. I got to have my most prominent moment in my career when I got to work with Terry Funk, and he had not been defeated in a one-on-one match. You know, like the week before, a couple weeks before, you know, we did the favor for Eric Bischoff. Me and Johnny got the belt. I took the belt, put it on me. I had a match with Johnny the Bull, but I wasn't going to be established until I wrestled Terry Funk.
Mhm.
And that was the calling for me to be called one of the greatest hardcore wrestlers of all time. When a guy like that hands you the belt and shakes your hand in the middle of the ring, that's a signal and a sign, hey, you have crossed over the threshold and you have
Mhm.
made your name here. Congratulations and good luck. So I can never thank him enough. And I know he's passed. I know he's looking down. And I thank him every time I do an interview. But that was a very great moment in my career. So I can't never say nothing bad about WCW. And you know what? Every company is not the best. Every company has its gripes. But when you look at it, would you change anything? Not really. Would you learn from the experience on how to maybe handle yourself differently backstage? Yes. But interacting with the guys and card games and traveling and doing all that stuff and traveling the world, how could you say you wouldn't want to do that? I've done things that people wish would give their right arm to do in wrestling, you know, and I've done it all, you know, and it's not just like I wrestled for, you know, one match for a company and I'd say, yeah, I was part of it. I actually, any company I worked for, I had an angle, I had a
Mhm.
persona, I had a character, I got over, and it wasn't like a one and done. I actually worked for these companies where I did something significant.
I agree, and you know it's you seem like you are a very straightforward and honest person and a hardworking person when it comes to professional wrestling, and that really shows through all of your work.
Well, you know, sometimes being honest can stab you in the foot. Now, this is nothing bad, guys. It's just me. I'm a stand-up guy, and I just, you know, say it like it is. And like, you know, they always used to tell me, and these are some of the best in the business. You know, if you kiss a little ass around here, you'd be world champion. And it just kissing ass just wasn't my thing. But I wasn't, I wasn't the politic, I didn't have that finesse. I just wanted to be known for my wrestling, and I was a great
Mhm.
wrestler. Everybody knew I could wrestle. I could wrestle anybody in the world. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like I was short on that. It was just the politic game behind the
Yeah.
scenes that I was not polished on.
Mhm.
And you know what? Everybody learns the game and everybody learns a good lesson. So if any young wrestlers are out there watching, no matter how great you are, you have to bend a little bit, bend, Vito, bend, you know what I mean? So there's a good segment. You got to bend a little bit. So
When WCW closed, was there any initial talks with WWE, or was it silence for a while? And how did you end up
that
back
came
with?
that came up out of nowhere, and Eric Bischoff was supposed to buy it for 36 million in the Mandalay Bay, and that didn't happen. So it was like, okay, that didn't happen. WWE came in and they bought it, and there's a whole bunch of XYZ that goes along with it that I know about, but it would be wrong of me to disclose it. So we just leave it at that. And history is history.
How did your talks with WWE begin a couple years later?
I was wrestling in TNA, and I finished TNA. I called up WWE, and they said, "All right, come down. We do some dark matches." I did some dark matches. They would put me with Nunzio, and finally I got the call. Said, "We're going to hire you." And it's funny. Like I was in the transition at that time to move to Florida and be with this young lady and buy a house, start a family, and do all this stuff. And I said I need a change in my life, and I
Mhm.
had just gotten there, and I had spent maybe one day, and then all of a sudden I got the call, and I was like, I gotta go. I have to get back, and like the rest is it was just somebody was watching over me. Yeah,
Mhm.
Vito, I don't think this is going to be good for you. Maybe we're going to give you a call. But perseverance and holding out and waiting for that call, not
Mhm.
everybody can do that. They go on in life, and it is what it is.
Absolutely. What for you personally? What stands out the most for you during your second run with WWE at that time?
I got to wrestle with one of my best friends, Nunzio.
Mhm.
She won a title. I had to be in a video game. I had Nunzio and I were a very, very good tag team. And, a lot of people thought we should have won tag team championships. Didn't happen. But we were a very good team. And then when I started to go on a singles run, that was promising. And then, then all of a sudden they had ECW come back. And I really wasn't a mainstay in ECW, but I was, caught like, okay, what do I do? Where do we go? And because I was under federal investigation, that's how the dress came up. So I was under investigation for a lot of stuff that happened in Staten Island. So I was like, okay, I got to cover myself. So the WWE helped me come up with a plan to stay out of the limelight or out of what I was doing before, on the streets. And then we came up with this and it kind of took off. I got to wrestle a lot of great guys, tour the world, live a different lifestyle that helped a lot of people, open the door for a lot of wrestlers.
Mhm.
I posed in Playgirl magazine tastefully, which I'm proud of. Now, a lot of guys say, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pose in Playgirl. Chicks are going to dig me. It wasn't even about that. It was about doing something very unique at that time
Mhm.
that boosted my personality, my performance. It was something. I mean, I got my face on the cover of Playgirl. I was next to the centerfold, and I didn't expose myself in that way, and I did it tastefully.
Mhm.
So it was a good one day of beauty in your life. So one day I was beautiful. So that just says a lot right there.
How did your time in Deep South come to be, and where did all that come from?
When I was off the road, I used to go to Deep South and I used to go to Ohio Valley to keep in shape. And the boys said, Vito, why are you going? I said, I'm keeping in shape, want to keep my ring going, and I just want to be on the road. So that's how I went there. And then when I was done, my investigation was over. that's when I changed personas and I did the Muay Thai gimmick.
Hmm.
I was in Deep South, and then I just took it off. I won the heavyweight title down there, and I was ready to go to TV, and then something happened, and I got a phone call, and that was it. So, like I said, there's a lot of things behind the scenes that go on that we don't talk about, but it was a great time. It was a good run, and now, you know, where I am today doing what I am doing,
Hmm.
people are appreciating the work I've accomplished throughout my career. And they really did take a deep look and say, oh my God, you are that good of a wrestler and a great character. And your persona in so many different areas to do the dawn of pro wrestling and fight the gigolos, and Violent J and all his cronies. It's a great experience, and the ratings have come up the charts. They're doing phenomenal things. They're changing the concept, and it's a good place to work, and hopefully they can acquire a TV deal. And, the character, Big Vito the Don, is loved by all you jugalos. And it's the true it's the truest story because you go in the chat and you actually see all the comments, and if they say, if every comment just said Vito you suck, then okay, I'm not doing my job. But it's so many different answers, comments, love, hate, emotion, that everybody is so involved with what I'm doing. I'm fighting zombies. I'm fighting clowns. I'm fighting monsters. I have gumads I'm dumping. I'm fighting Violent J. I'm going to get into it with everybody in this company, try to take it down brick by brick, by brick by brick, so I could ruin Violent J and his corporation. Because I'm the head of Luciano Enterprises, and that's the way we roll around here.
It is refreshing to see you on this new run, and it seems like you are really having a lot of fun with everything and embracing all sides of it. With, like you were saying, with the fans, like it's a big deal right now within the wrestling community.
I am enjoying myself and having a good time. Biggest thing, people say, that's Vito. He's a great actor. I'm not acting, people. This is me. All right. When it comes to doing your street business and being who I am, it's no joke. I live this lifestyle. So this is who you're seeing. You're seeing the Don Pro. Right now, I'm in my, hey, I just got home from the golf course. I was, hanging with the fellas. I got my golf hat on. I had a shirt. It was a little chilly out there. So, like, I'm all right. But when you look at what I'm doing on TV, it's the same guy. They
Hmm.
say, Vito, she's freaking the same. It's just me being me. And I think that's the biggest thing that people have come into my world and they say, wow, there's just a wow factor. You know what I mean? And when it comes to fighting Russo and everybody in there, I don't have to be the great wrestler. I have to be this tough son of a bitch fighter just that could throw hands. And the wrestling, I'm not in a singlet. I'm not in tights. I'm in wrestling in a suit. So
Hmm.
every Don handles his own business. So you take a few, you give a few, but at the end, I'm always up.
Absolutely. With this new resurgent, how is life for you now? How is everything going? I see you're doing seminars, you're doing a lot within wrestling, and it seems like you're giving back while you're doing all of this stuff all at once. And how does that feel for you?
I never stopped loving wrestling. It's just wrestling wasn't treating me too good, and wrestling's treating me fabulous. So I'm enjoying everything right now. And like, me going to do seminars, I love teaching. Me
Hmm.
training with all the young guys, I like training. Me working out every day, I like working out. I keep in shape. I look good. And one thing about me is I'm so anal about my appearance, my body, and everything, the way I handle myself, that if I wasn't able to be this,
Hmm.
I would not be doing this. And if I couldn't bump and I couldn't wrestle and I couldn't move, you people would shit on it so bad. And they'd say, oh, look at this. He's trying to live on 30. but I'm not. I can go with the young guys and I can
Hmm.
wrestle. You know, it's not easy wrestling in tuxedo shoes and tuxedo pants and shirt and tie, but I'm doing it. But, my workouts, my cardio, I do an hour or two. Today I did an hour and 30 minutes of cardio. And then I did my squats and I did my workout. And then my diet is like, yesterday, and you people are gonna laugh, but I eat vegetables every day. At vegetables, eggs, a piece of chicken. Yesterday, I had a personal appearance, and I had a great time up in Brownsville at the Marine Corps, the VA. And I told the cook at the house, listen, I need something, with some stuff in it. So I said, make me some scalloped potatoes. I got to eat something. I'm dying. So I had to eat some carbs because I was so depleted. And the day before, I was working out outside. I play pickleball, right? I'm a notorious pickleball player, right? So I had my sauna suit on, a shirt, a sweat jacket, a wool hat, long pants, sneakers. I'm bundled up. It's 80 degrees out there. All of a sudden, I get this burst of, it's called weight loss sweat. I've been dealing with this for a long time, where you get this sweat where just the water pours out of you.
Hmm.
I was peeling shit off me left and right. And they said, Vito, you okay? You okay? I said, I'm fine. I'm having a weight loss right now. So everybody was going, oh my God, you sure did you look at you? So I started to play again. I said, guys, I need a sub. I said, I got to sit. So I'm sitting, I'm pouring. They said, you okay? I said, yeah, just let me get through this. And then I finished my workout. I went to work out at night, but guys, when you're constantly trying to keep your body and trying to look good, trying to keep slim and fit and diet and not eat garbage and like do all these things, it's a lifestyle, it's a religion, something you got to do, you know. And I'm enjoying it. My family enjoys it. They are happy that I'm back. My wife is thrilled that I'm back wrestling and doing well. And a lot of people don't know is that when I got married on my wedding day, my wife got hurt. She had to go in the hospital. She hurt her back. Well, first 3 months of our marriage, she was in the hospital. So I had to stay home and take care of her. So I had to deactivate from wrestler, learn how to be a husband again, and learn how to take care of a handicapped woman. So I'm doing this in my first year of marriage, and I'm like, okay, it's overwhelming. I was like, and I didn't, there was a point during that where I didn't think she was going to make it. And I had dropped, I think 25 or 30 pounds. Like it just ripped off me. And people were like, Vito, I said, I can't eat. I can't sleep. I'm a nervous wreck. I look terrible, but I had every reason to. I just, trying to start a life and it didn't go the way we planned. And, now that I'm wrestling again, I'm able to be me and go out and do stuff. And, you know, it's the way we're supposed to be, where we were supposed to be. So I mean, it's a great thing. And like now she's behind me. She handles all my social media, and I know I have gumads out there. I thank you all very much. You're a part of this too. So, but guys, it's been a long haul, and like hopefully this leads into something greater than
Hmm.
what we're doing now. And I
Hmm.
think JCW has a future, and everybody's pushing all the right buttons. Vince Russo asked me if I wanted to do this with him. And I said, yeah. I said, is this can be? He says, yeah. He says, let's give it a whirl. And me and him have been friends for 35 years. And, you know, if I didn't come, he wasn't coming. So I said, yeah, Vince, I'll do it with you. So this is what I'm doing. So I'm trying to make the best of it. And, even though, we're butting heads and, he's over there with Violent J being cushy in their new apartment, texting each other on their couches. Well, I'm still there, I'm over here fighting monsters and zombies and hateful gumads and, vampires and everybody else in this group. But the Juggalo lifestyle, people don't know. They're the most happiest people and they're the kindest people. They come with their face paint. They want to be sprayed with Fago, and they just want to show love, right? This is what I learned about them. Here I come being a miserable bastard. I said, first off, wipe that shit off your faces and stop clowning around, right? So then I tell them Fago is no longer, and now we have Dago juice, Dago juices, all right, Dago. It's 2 for $40. Call me, I got you, right? Start my own enterprise, Luciano Enterprise. Start small. Not everything can fall off a truck. But the people, when I come out, I am the most hated guy in this place. My job is to make you miserable and take apart Violent J and everything you work for, and I'm going to make Shaggy Dope my friggin' go back and be in a bellhop at the hotel, and Violent J is going to go back on the street corner, with a cup, rapping for nickels like Biggie Smalls did. That's my goal. That's what I want. I got to tear it down.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Where can people reach out to you at?
Well, guys, you can find me on Twitter at the Big Vito brand, Instagram at the Big Vito brand, TikTok at the Big Vito brand. On Facebook, it's Big Vito. LinkedIn, I'm also on LinkedIn. If you guys would like to get a hold of me, I have a website, bigvito.com, or you can email me at bigvito@bigvito.com. I take all bookings. I even have a preacher's license so I could marry you, you know.
Okay. Okay.
Got it like that. I got connections. I don't sell pocketbooks and Louis Vuittons no more. I was in another era, but now, I'm moving up and I'm selling Rolexes, so everything is
There you
good.
go.
But that's the whole ball of wax. I want to thank you for a great interview, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. And I want to say thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and what you continue to do, sir. It truly was an honor and a pleasure just to talk a little bit about your career.
Thank you very much. And listen, I don't know why you're wearing a Hardy shirt,
I,
so we can go delete, delete, delete. Buy a Big Vito shirt. Come on, go
yes,
in your
sir.
piggy bank. Do something.
Right after this, I will, sir. I assure you that. And Vito, if there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out.
Nah, no problem, man. Just, promote the show, have a good time. I hope that millions of people come to your site and, watch.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. I appreciate you.
All right, peace out, guys.